it's me, Essie Magic, and today I'm going to be answering the question of the difference between a sustainable business and an eco-friendly business, because believe it or not, people ask me that question a lot because my brand, Zam Jewelry, is eco-friendly. People will also come across a lot of sustainable brands these days. It's getting more and more popular, and people just don't understand the difference or why it matters, or if you are a business owner, you might not understand if you should adopt any of those sort of practices or not. So I'm gonna share what I can to help you learn the difference and decide what you wanna do for your business, or even if you're a shopper or consumer deciding how you wanna support certain businesses. So exactly what is the difference between a sustainable brand and an eco-friendly brand? First off, both are good. Both are a positive impact on the environment, but they have different sort of reasonings why you would choose one, and they also have different legal liabilities as well. So often at times you'll see brands manage them in different ways. So in terms of sustainable or a sustainable business looks at the full ecosystem of your supply chain and looks at the impact that it has both socially, economically, and environmentally, and it guarantees that positive impact. Essentially, it's a guarantee that your action or your business preserves the long-term health of our planet and our resources. When it comes to environmental, does it, help to prevent things that would destroy the natural biology of our planet, the ecology of our planet? When it comes to our water, does it help minimize waste or things that could, damage our water sources? These are a business that takes actions to ensure that does not happen is being sustainable. When it comes to the social aspect, right? Does the company use certain ethics? Do they care about human rights? Do they care about fair trade? Do they care about equity? Do they care about how it affects people's living situations, right? If they're living near an area where suddenly a factory is built, that is involved in sustainability. When it comes to economics, does your business help the financial wealth of the society that it's in for generations to come? What sort of impact does it have? Or does it, take away from it and cause people to lose jobs and things like that? So sustainability takes into account all of those three things: social, economic, and environmental. And it has to be a guarantee, which is very difficult to do in some cases, because you can make so many good decisions for your specific business, but your supply chain around you and the partners and other companies you work with in your total supply chain might not have that. And that's why it's so difficult for a lot of businesses to call themselves fully sustainable, because even if they take so many, decisions to help the planet and the environment in their business, they cannot guarantee that their partner or their supplier or the manufacturer is doing that. And even if you ask them, they could be lying. You don't know, right? So to avoid that legal liability, sometimes you just can't say sustainable. And you can get in a lot more trouble legally if you make a mistake. If you label something sustainable and it turns out that it's not, you can be in trouble with the government. You can be sued. You could get bad publicity and press from consumers. So it is a big risk to call yourself sustainable if you're not actually fully sustainable in those three items that I mentioned before. But with that being said, this is not to deter brands from being sustainable, because there are some amazing things about being a sustainable brand. There are actually studies, more and more studies, that are showing that being sustainable actually improves profitability for your company. So if you're looking at it even in terms of just a business model, you end up saving a lot because you conserve water. You use materials that aren't as expensive or more cost efficient. A lot of cases you're more energy efficient, so you're saving dollars there. Sustainable companies also repurpose a lot of goods. They don't just throw things away, right? So you end up reusing things that could make you better at managing your cost of doing business. And it's actually interesting that sustainable companies can be more profitable than non-sustainable companies, because there's definitely a myth where people think that being a sustainable brand and putting those efforts is actually more expensive, because they think they have to spend so much money on things that are guaranteed to not affect the environment, or maybe that company wants to spend on very cheap things that they know is not sustainable. But in reality, it can actually be more profitable to be sustainable. And there are even studies that show, specifically there's a study that came out of UCLA that shows that employees at sustainable companies are actually 16% more productive than ones not at sustainable companies. The reason why is not clear. It could be just that they feel more engaged and morally connected to the company they work for, and therefore they put more energy and effort and feel more proud of what they're doing. But that is a very interesting stat of how sustainability actually improves employee morale. So at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, then why isn't every company sustainable then if it's so great? Well, as I mentioned before, is that there are a lot more legal liabilities if you call yourself sustainable but you are not, or it turns out you're not. What some companies will do is they will get some sort of certification. You can get certification from different third parties. I know McDonald's, for example, has a certification for their fish or fish fillet sandwich or specifically the fish part, because they were accused of not being sustainable even though they said it was. So they get that certification to have that legal protection. So there are ways to get your certifications done and things like that to prove it out and have that to back up what you're saying. But it is a long process, and for most small businesses, it's very difficult to do that. So maybe you might not want to do that right away, but it's something you aim to do later on. So now let's get into eco-friendly, which is actually very similar to sustainability. It just is a bit more realistic on how you can do things, and understanding that you can't control all the parts of your supply chain if it's managed by somebody else. So you do the best that you can. When it comes to being an eco-friendly business, essentially you try to reduce harmful impact to the environment, and even try to eliminate it in some cases from your full end-to-end process. So that includes production, packaging, and disposal, and you do the best that you can. However, the reason why companies will choose to be eco-friendly or label themselves eco-friendly instead of sustainable is because with eco-friendly, you have to just prove the parts of your business are eco-friendly that you say it is. Eco-friendly brands will use recyclable materials, they will use compostable materials, they will reuse things. Literally, recycle, reduce, reuse is a big part of what eco-friendly brands do. And they do a lot of environmentally friendly aspects. And actually, eco-friendly is actually in the sustainable umbrella. So eco-friendly is a part of sustainable. But the reason why a lot of brands cannot call themselves sustainable is, again, because of the full supply chain. There might be a part in your supply chain controlled by somebody else, especially for a small business, that you cannot guarantee that they are sustainable. And if even that point is discovered that you didn't know about, you could face legal liability. An example would be for Zam Jewelry. Even though I do so much to make sure that my business has good practice and is eco-friendly, when I receive some of the products after it's manufactured, it comes in a little plastic baggie like this, right? And I can't control how the manufacturer brings me the product. Even though I then take the baggie, I make sure that I reuse them as my way to do my part of that. This in itself can eliminate my ability to call my business sustainable, because the manufacturer mails me the product in these baggies. So there are things that are just outside your control that you can't really fix unless you are a huge corporation with so much money to do it. One thing I did as well when I was finding my manufacturer was I asked questions about ethics, because that's very important to me. So I asked them, you know, what sort of conditions are the employees in? Are they making equitable wages? Are they getting proper time off? And that was very important to me. And that would technically cover the social aspect of sustainability. So you see, there are a lot of sustainable components that a brand can have, but even though my manufacturer tells me that, I can't be 100%, like, I trust them and I love my manufacturer, but you never know, right? There's that 1% chance that one of your manufacturers is lying or something, and then you would be liable. So I do technically have a lot of sustainable practices in my business, whether it comes to social or environmental, but I just can't legally say it because of there are parts in my supply chain that are outside of my control, and I'm not, you know, it's just not within my, you know, I can't be micromanaging somebody else's business, right? I just don't have the purview of that. And as a small business, a lot of times you just don't have the power, money, or resources to, you know, check all those things and get all those things done legally, get the certifications done, or even the resources it takes to find out every component of your supply chain and verify it. It's one thing to find out and get that assurance from your manufacturer. It's another thing to actually verify it so you're not legally liable. So with that being said, I still end up calling my business eco-friendly. And again, I do as much as I can. I will even show you examples right now of everything that I do in my business to make it eco-friendly that's within my power. And hopefully this can help you learn as well, in case you also have limitations to what you can do that's sustainable, but still want to do your best to reduce your impact, or I should say your harmful impact on the environment. So for example, I use a lot of recyclable materials. All of my products come in these boxes, cardboard boxes, which are recyclable, which I put these in before they're mailed. I also use organic cotton for my packaging bags, for these bags that the products come in, and these are compostable. So that's one thing that I was purposely looking for. I was very intentional about. I was like, I want bags that when I put the products in, that I know they are not harmful to the environment. So I got these beautiful organic cotton bags that the product comes in, and they're like drawstring, and they're, you know, they're both cute. It's definitely a win when you can get something that's both cute and helpful for the environment. So I love these bags specifically that I have as part of my packaging. Another thing was I made sure even my exam jewelry boxes are cardboard, again, so that it can be recycled. But again, your supply chain problem, they then put these foam things by default, right? So some things you just can't really control, and then some things you know, it's just your industry. Like in the jewelry industry, foam is used a lot, right? So, and there are some foam that is depending on how it's made, can be helpful for the environment, but the jewelry industry is one of those where it's still catching up. So you do the best that you can to help minimize your footprint on the planet. For a lot of my inserts, they're all cardboard. So the thank you cards are all cardboard, even the jewelry care guide as well, my affiliate program, everything, I put them on recyclable cards that can be easily recycled. Even for my poly mailer, I use these compostable plant-based mailers. People don't know that you can get poly mailers that are plant-based, and I purposely looked for something that would be good for the environment, and it even has a label on it that says that it's good for compost, and I use this to as my mailer. So I'll put the box inside, like once everything's packed and done in this box, it goes in this mailer. So even your poly mailers can be good for the environment. So these are all the things that I do. And then as I mentioned at the beginning, again, I cannot control that my manufacturer sends the jewelry. Like once the inventory is done and it sends the jewelry, it sends it in these plastic bags. But what I can do is I can reuse them. I don't throw them away. I reuse them. So that way I'm doing my best to minimize waste for the environment. So there are things you can do even if you cannot guarantee that your full supply chain, again, is sustainable. There are things you can do within your business to help. Even my free polishing cloths, I include a free polishing cloth with every order. I make sure that it comes in these paper envelopes.
Pause. I forgot to mention here that even the jewelry itself is made with a base of recycled sterling silver. So even the materials that the jewelry are made of are also eco-friendly. Now back to the video.
So as you can see, I do quite a lot of sustainable initiatives in my business, and there are people who actually call my business sustainable. They just look at it and they're like, oh, that's a sustainable business. But again, for legal reasons, because of the small percentage of legal reason, I don't call myself sustainable. But that's not a bad thing, right? Any sort of help you can do to minimize waste and to reduce harm to the planet is good. So I definitely encourage brands, even if you cannot be sustainable, to have eco-friendly practices in your business. That will be helpful for the environment, and it's just good. It's just good to care about things, right? And this video is honestly, I'm not trying to shame anybody or any businesses who don't call themselves eco-friendly or sustainable. I'm just trying to honestly educate people because people ask me the question of the difference. So this is not meant to, if you don't call yourself eco-friendly or sustainable, you do you, it's all good. It's not something that I'm going to be shaming you for or anything, but hopefully even watching this video, helps you to at least see the possibilities of what you could do. And if I did even that, and just to educate and help anybody, that's enough for me. So with that being said, if you have any other questions, leave it in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. If you appreciated this video and this information, give it a thumbs up. And of course, if you want to see more about my journey with my jewelry brand, Zam Jewelry, make sure you subscribe. And yeah, as I like to say, I've been SC Magic, and I hope that you keep being magic. Bye.